Good morning and welcome back to another video. My name is Austin. I work at Full Line Ag, a farm equipment dealership located here in this beautiful province we call Saskatchewan. Behind me, we have this big 700 Gen 7. But we're starting this video standing beside this, but in the background, we can see some Massey tractors because that's what today's video is. We're going to be comparing these two tractors, a Massey Ferguson 7S 190 and a Massey Ferguson 6S 165. These two tractors are different tractors. One is a high spec, that's the 7S, and one is a lower spec, which is the 6S. You can get the 6S in a high spec and you can get the 7S in a low spec. Just happened to be the way that these two were brought in. The 6S has a Powershift transmission and the 7S has a CVT. But we will get more into that in this video. First things first, we're going to look at the appearance of these two tractors. This front one is the 6S 165, and we can tell it is slightly shorter, the hood, than what that 7S is. We can also see it sits slightly lower than what the 7S is, but mind you, we do have different tire options. These ones are 540/65 R28, whereas on this 7S we're looking at 540/65 R30. So we have slightly different tires going between these two frame sizes. The back tires are also slightly different. On the 7S we're looking at a 650/65 R42, as well. On this 6S, we're looking at a 650/65 R38. So that will change slightly, the heights, but visibly we can see a little bit difference in that chassis between the two frames. And we can also see on the wheelbase that 7S is just a little bit longer. If we walk up to this nice clean workbench, we can get technical. We can flip to the back here and we can actually look at the different specs, and the specs will change slightly between options. We can see the 7S here and we can see our dimensions, and we can see the 6S and we can see our dimensions. Slight differences as well with different transmissions, the Dyna 6 versus the Dyna VT in both tractors. And now next, we are going to talk a little bit more about specs. These are all specs you can see online if you go to fulllineag.com or if you go to Massey Ferguson's website. But the 6S behind me, we are looking at a 4-cylinder AGCO power engine. It's a 4.9 liter, whereas the 7S is a little bit bigger. It's a 6-cylinder, 6.6 liter engine. So that is your big difference between the two as well, is we're going from a 6-cylinder on the 7S to 4-cylinder on the 6S. This 7S is a 190, but all of the power ranges within this frame size are right here. We can go from 155 horsepower up to 210 horsepower, whereas on the 6S 165, we have a tractor with 145 horsepower all the way up to 180 horsepower in this frame size. The cabs on both of these tractors are actually almost the same dimensionally. The insides, however, will be slightly different, but that is because of options and packaging. But looking at the back end of the tractors, we can see that this 7S looks a little more beefy. We have bigger steel around here and just all around a bit beefier of a rear end. We have cab suspension on both of these units. We have more electro-hydraulic remotes on this 7S, but that is an option thing. And then we also have this little thing, which is our oil fill for our CVT transmission, because this has a Fendt CVT in it. However, if we're looking at the 6S, it still is a nice heavy looking tractor on the back. We can see it's a little bit smaller metal there. We do not have the port here because this is a Dyna 6 Powershift transmission. We have cab suspension, and just all around slightly smaller, we have our remotes. We have only 4 of them on this tractor, but that is an option thing. But enough about all the specs on these 2 machines. If you want to know more on those, just go online and look at the brochures. That's pretty much all I've been doing. But now we're going to talk options, because this is where these 2 get set apart very differently from Full Line Ag's point of view, and just how we order these 2 machines. We can custom order however we want, but we brought in this 6S more as a cattleman's tractor, a little bit of a cheaper price point. We have a Dyna 6 transmission, whereas this 7S is also a cattleman tractor, has front end loader, bucket grapple, but it's a little bit fancier. It has a CVT transmission. We have also GPS on the top, and it is more of a field tractor as well. And why I say it is a little bit more of a field tractor, we have a little bit more weight on the back. So on this tractor, we have 2 wheel weights on each side. We also have a few more hydraulic remotes on the back. We also have our isobus controller, and we have some returns and power beyond. I believe that's what all those are, but we just have a little bit more options than what we are seeing on this 6S that we brought in. We can spec this 6S up pretty much the exact same as that, just how we brought this in. And around the front side of these 2 tractors, we can see another slight variation between the 6S and the 7S is actually these numbers up here. So these are the 2 different sizes of front end loader. So this is a little bit bigger front end loader on the 7S than what the 6S has. And I don't remember exactly, so don't quote me if I'm right, but I believe there's a meaning for these FL loaders. So this one would be an FL loader, I believe 4,100 kilograms at 2.4 meters. That's what it can lift. Whereas this is 4,300 kilograms at 2.7 meters. There is a scheme that makes sense. I don't know if it is exactly that, but it is something along those lines for weight and height and how much they can lift. So that's a little fun fact. But at the front of the tractors, this 6S, we can see we do not have any front axle suspension. We have just a standard front axle. Whereas this 7S, we can see we have some front axle suspension. So now we're going to talk about the cabs, because the cabs are the big differences in options. This 6S, we have a classic cab, whereas the 7S, we have the deluxe cab. Stepping into this 6S tractor with the classic cab, our nice embroidered Massey seat in here. We can see things look kind of standard to what the previous Massey tractors looked like. We have manual spool valves for our hydraulics. We have our Powershift moving forward, moving backwards, our front end loader joystick, throttle, as well as we have our 3-point hitch controls. The dash looks almost the exact same as what the previous ones did. There is lots of functionality that we can actually control in that cluster. For gears that we start in, we can also control it. So if we are bailing and we step on the brake, we will go to neutral. When we let our foot off the brake, we'll start in a selected gear, and then we can always bump up from there. We step on the brake again when our bail is made, and it will go back to that first starting gear. So when we release, we keep moving again. Just little differences like that. In this cab, it is the classic cab, but stepping into the cab, instantly we can see some differences, mainly in, of course, that nice beautiful Massey Ferguson embroidered seat. It's almost like the Evolution seats that are in those Fence, where the headrest swivels. But also, we can see in here, we have 2 different monitors. We have our GPS terminal, and then we have our standard tractor functions terminal. We can see our CVT joystick to go forward, to go reverse. We can see our front end loader joystick. We can also see we have hydraulic controls right here on our forward and reverse joystick. We have cruise controls right here on our joystick, as well as we come to the side and we have some electro hydraulic remotes. The side pillar looks almost the same. The front console looks almost the same. We can see a European looking heater and cooler, I think, for in the cab, just for some extra, maybe it's a foot warmer. It's kind of at that height. And now looking at these monitors loaded up our GPS, as well as our monitor for controlling tractor functions, and we can change and adjust everything right from the terminal, which is nice. I like the way this 3-point hitch dial looks. Everything looks similar to what the 8S tractors look like. It just looks nice and clean. But anyways, that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and I hope you learned something. If you did, let me know in the comment section down below. But thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.